Hello, my name is Erica, and I'm the Dyslexic Trekkie. Before I get started, I'd like to welcome all the new subscribers. Your interest really helps out, and Ensign Bradbury has agreed that for every 100 subscribers, he'll let you all hear one of his kitten's logs. Last year I made an episode discussing the issues of religion in Star Trek and made a rough overview of the religions of the franchise. A fan left a comment relating to the Vulcan rituals, which included mind melds and other telepathic abilities. My video had been an overview and wasn't intended to go into deep analysis of any one religion, but I thought the points were well made and it is a fascinating subject. One of the key points I made in my Religions in Star Trek was that, by and large, there is a basis in fact in the different aliens' faiths. The changelings are real. They did create the Vorta and the Jem'Hadar in a fashion. The aliens known as the Prophets did leave prophecies about the future for the Bajorans. These things aren't up for debate. What they mean in each case may be, but the races did do what they are said to do. There's quantifiable evidence for these things, and not just subjective ideas on how things might have been. I think it makes sense that the use of telepathic abilities would play a part in the rituals relating to one's faith when they're readily available. One of the truths of Vulcan culture is logic and reason creates an emotional barrier. With that barrier, it becomes harder for two people to come to a personal understanding. This is where some rituals come in handy. As found in Spock Amok in Strange New Worlds, when a couple is struggling to understand one another, they can perform the Full Torpan, a kind of mind swap ritual. With it, Spock and T'Pring learn to better understand one another and find a way to overcome issues that would not have been able to be addressed. It's a pretty convoluted way around speaking on one's feelings, but then again, it did work. We see something similar happen in Voyager when Vorik chooses B'Elanna as his mate. It's a quick moment when, during his Ponfar, Vorik essentially bonds with B'Elanna, causing her to go through the Ponfar as well. There's one thing about this moment I found interesting, and it's that he didn't mean to do it. The Ponfar has become the worst kept secret in Star Trek's greater culture. Vulcans don't like talking about it because it's such a difficult time for them. Their logic and reason is broken down for the sake of reproduction. Because of this, they don't really like to talk about it. But somehow everyone knows about it. In a weird way, the Ponfar is similar to women's periods. Everyone knows they happen, it can leave people debilitated, and under extreme circumstances can lead to death. Look up tampons and TSS. But overall, it's kept quiet for the respect of those going through it. If one can die if they don't mate, it's imperative for there to be a partner to mate with. Being able to telepathically bond with someone means they have that needed partner. Of course, Vulcan culture has highly ritualized and largely logical methods for managing this. Vulcans can be bonded as children, so they have someone to bond with as adults. If they are compatible when the time comes, there's a ritual for choosing a new partner and alleviating that urge. Vorik was in a unique position, being the only Vulcan and nearing his first Ponfar with no way to alleviate it. There's one aspect of the Vulcan telepathic ability that's only occasionally touched on. Vulcans don't use it this way very often, but they are fully telepathic in a similar way to Beta Zeds. Though I can't find any evidence of it, the way we see this ability used in the shows hints to me that this is limited to other telepaths, similar to how Deanna can only read and project thoughts to her mother and sometimes will when they remember. We see Tuvok has to hide with the other telepaths in Counterpoint. Also, Spock stays in some form of communication with the aliens who captured Captain Pike in The Cage. In Random Thoughts, Tuvok explains that Vulcans prefer to use vocal speech as most of those around them are not capable of communicating telepathically. And that's another side of much of what Vulcans do. Whatever else is said about their culture, they are considerate of those around them. A couple months ago, I talked about how it's considered rude for Vulcans to mention their age, and it's a sign of intimacy for them to reveal it. I have my thoughts on why this is, and I intend on discussing it in a future minute sometime. But more than anything, much of what Vulcans do with their telepathic abilities is considerate. Vorik didn't even know what he was doing to B'Elanna. He just acted. When he did realize, I believe he tried to show her respect when the whole incident was over. It might have been because of the actor, but you don't see him much with B'Elanna afterwards. I think if it had been outside the Delta Quadrant, he would have been asked to be transferred from the ship. All the rituals for the Pon farr are in consideration of their mates, the possible change of interest, and even the attempt to ensure people have the chance to not be alone. The Fultar Pan is designed to help people better relate to one another, a form of consideration. I believe that is the core of Vulcan values. Their logic concludes that they need to be considerate of one another, and those outside of their people. Pacifism, even to the point of not harming the sensitivities of outsiders. But there's one last form of Vulcan telepathy I haven't addressed. I've held off on talking about the mind melds until the end for 2 reasons. One, we all know about them. If you know Star Trek, you know mind melds as well as you know the names of every captain of every ship in the franchise. But it's also the most controversial in universe. You think? We know it was massively taboo for thousands of years. T'Pol is scandalized because she develops a condition caused by a mind meld and nearly dies for it. The first and only allegory for AIDS Star Trek has ever attempted. Whenever it comes up, the mind meld is treated like a hugely dangerous and intrusive method of either interrogation or some other treatment. When Tuvok nearly dies from a repressed memory, the doctor warns them to choose another method. Considering he's actually dying, this says a lot. Tuvok eventually develops a degenerative condition that can only be cured with a mind meld with his son. Spock uses it for interrogations and last-ditch efforts of interrogation repeatedly. But I believe there's a reason why mind melds were so taboo, and it goes back to the culture of consideration. T'Pol was mind raped. She didn't consent to a mind meld. In essence, she got brain aids through non-consensual acts. I don't think I have to say more in explaining the continued allegory of AIDS here. At this point, I'm not even sure I can call it an allegory. But unlike normal telepathy, mind melds aren't just reading the thoughts of a person. It's taking a walk in someone else's brain. We see Captain Janeway in Tuvok's memory walking around and interacting with Tuvok as he relives his memories. Spock doesn't just use mind melds to ask leading questions to make someone think about what he needs to know. He pulls the information out against their will. Using the mind meld to communicate with aliens is left as a last resort because it's so intrusive. Even with consent, once inside someone's mind, a person can do anything, even attack them. Something shown in disturbing details in random thoughts. I believe mind melds are made taboo for that reason. They were outlawed and treated as deviant, not because it forces people to know one another's emotions, but because it forces people at all. All the other rituals are designed in such a way as to allow for consent. And no, I haven't forgotten our horny Voyager Vulcan. He wasn't in his right mind. He's the exception that shows the rule. Any form of telepathy would potentially be a violation if misused, but mind melds are something else. Even with consent, there's a sense of violation. Only in extreme circumstances can it seem reasonable. I think the biggest take from looking at Vulcan telepathy and its ritualized nature is Vulcans chose enlightenment for themselves and took it as far as they could. These rituals of sharing minds and joining bonds show that they need those connections just like any other culture. They went about it in a rather unique way, but Vulcans needed to satisfy the same social structures as any other culture. Their need for emotional bonds didn't end at enlightenment. It evolved. They found other ways, in some ways, an even more intimate way. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any thoughts, feelings, or ideas, please share in the comments below. If you notice any spelling or reading mistakes in this video, please comment within the first week of posting for the chance to choose a future topic. Again, my name is Erica, and I'm the Dyslexic Trekkie. Okay, do you want a num-num? Yes, I know. I got everything set up, and he ran up here like he knew exactly where the ensign goes and sat down ready to work. And then I had to actually get things set up, and he wanted to get to work. Now he's getting a little impatient.